On his podcast, host and UFC commentator Joe Rogan went off on Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky.
CNN was saying, like, finally, see what their headline was about Zelensky about Biden giving Zelensky the ability to use long-range missiles. U.S. made long-range. It's not like nobody knows where they came from. It's not like nobody knows we've been funding this. It's a proxy war. The whole thing is insane.
Aside from Rogan proving he doesn't read past the headline, one man called him out.
Joe Rogan, I listened to your latest podcast. I'm sending you this video to let you know that I disagree. You talk about these American weapons being sent to Ukraine, which you believe will lead to the Third World War. So, let me tell you that you're repeating Russian propaganda. Putin's Russia is in trouble, so they want to scare you and people like you. His war was supposed to last 3 days. It has lasted 3 years, thanks to the heroism and sacrifice of us Ukrainians. So you're using the only weapon that Putin really intends to use, propaganda. And this weapon really weakens our democracies. Putin's Russia wants to destroy Ukraine quietly. They want America to stay quiet, not great, but quiet.
That being former heavyweight boxing champion Vladimir Klitschko.
A great America is not an America that abandons countries that defend freedom with their lives. In short, you see, I have quite a few points of difference. If you invite me on your podcast, we could discuss them like free men.
And with that, Klitschko gave Rogan a shout, almost daring him to have the conversation. Important to note, a fan-run account, not Joe Rogan himself, apparently not anyone affiliated with the Joe Rogan experience. They built an audience, a large audience on Twitter. They have over 1 million followers on their account, okay? And they asked their 1 million plus followers this question that I'm about to read you. Does this make sense to anyone or just an attempt to get on the podcast? Look, I understand stan behavior is great in some ways and kind of a curse in some ways. This is one of them. Why would you not want to hear from someone whose brother also was a fellow heavyweight champion, but in addition, the mayor of Kyiv? And they have been on the front lines. They have seen a lot in Ukraine. I don't know why this would be an opportunity to pass up, other than what we could potentially point to, which is that they just don't want him on because they don't want this side getting out. So Klitschko would rebuke the message from the fan account, the Joe Rogan HQ account on Twitter. Fear factor. Offering a public opinion about a nation, but not able to discuss your opinion and facts with another public figure of the nation you had the opinion about. We would only meet in the podcast ring, not in the boxing ring. Let's do it. What are you waiting for, Joe Rogan? So to dissect this very quickly, fear factor for the younger audience that's watching this. That was a show that Joe Rogan was on. If you would like to take a look at it, YouTube it. It was basically a game show where people had to face their fears in order to win money and out-survive others on the show. And Rogan was the host of it. I believe it was on NBC. But then what I do like is, not able to discuss your own opinions with another public figure, you had the opinion about. This would be a slam dunk. Now, the difference is he doesn't Skype in guest. He doesn't Zoom in guest. He does it in person, strictly in person. So much so that if we remember when Madam VP Kamala Harris was running for president, they said, you need to come to us. And while Harris was on the campaign trail, she said that she had a desire for, them to do like a call her daddy sort of feel where they book out potentially a hotel room or a space for an hour plus and do the interview there. Obviously, it did not happen. But for the backstory on all of this, In short, Rogan was peeved that outgoing President Joe Biden gave the green light to Ukraine, along with other nations in the EU, to strike Russia with U.S.-supplied long-range missiles, and that it would have a cause and effect of starting World War III. From The Independent, the weapons are likely to be used in response to North Korea's decision to send thousands of troops to Russia in support of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and it comes after months of pressure from President Zelensky of Ukraine. Rogan went on, how are you allowed to do that when you are on your way out, as in Biden? Like, people don't want you to be there anymore. Maybe that would be a good thing. We would like to avoid from a dying former president, his words. The whole thing is nuts. So look, we know what has happened. There is a track record here and the over-aggression of the president of Russia. And while Rogan did admit that Putin overstepped, all right, and said that he was in the wrong for what he did to Ukraine, the podcaster argued that outgoing President Biden should not be allowed to, as he put it, escalate a war after he was voted out of office. So let's just also unpack that for a second. Is Rogan making the case that we should have a EU-style precedent where if a politician who is prime minister, president, blah, 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 lose an election, they got to pack their bags and be out the next day or 2 days, almost immediately from when the election is over? Obviously, that's very difficult with the system that we have in place in the country. Voting, mail-in ballots, recounts, etc. We're still counting ballots, guys. We're still counting ballots. So I'm kind of flabbergasted by this, because I didn't hear Rogan talking about, making, essentially it seems like making a direct or indirect argument that outgoing presidents should be stripped of their powers. And like, look, man, we could talk about it, but I didn't hear Rogan going off about how Donald Trump essentially went on a killing spree when it came to death row inmates in his final days. He just signed off on it left and right. It was almost robotic, the amount of times he signed off on it. So look, if that's the case, I would like to hear more. Or is he just saying you can't, like, that's his red line, like you can't do that if you lost an election and you're leaving? Or does it matter if you are retiring, or if you're stepping down or leaving, resigning, blah, blah, blah? Like, are you stripped of your powers then? It's just such an odd thing to hear. And I get it in a way, but I'm just hoping for more, which I did not receive. And just another note, and then we'll put a bow on this. When Rogan was asking of CNN's headline, the report went as follows: the decision to allow Ukraine to fire the missiles inside Russia is one even Biden's own advisors have been skeptical of, with CNN reporting some officials were concerned such a policy could escalate the conflict. That is true. It very well could. Now, here's my theory. To Rogan's own admission, he was hanging out with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And Elon built, according to Rogan, a whole program where he knew what was going to be the final result of the election, and he left early. How he has that information should be a red flag, guys. It should be a red flag. We could notice some trends, but for him to have the final result 2-3 hours prior to the decision, the outcome rather, being announced, no one should have that information. What should also be stated is that this man he makes his money off of government subsidies. So, Starlink, his business is built on taxpayer money. And it's also pretty jarring that he said, jokingly, whether you take it as a joke or not, up to you, if Donald Trump doesn't win, I might go to prison. Why would he say that? I'd like to know that. Third, knowing I believe it was Wall Street Journal piece on Musk and his what appears to be cozy relationship with the Kremlin and Putin, And the potential malfeasance when it comes to Ukraine and Starlink, I highly recommend you read this piece. It's very eye-opening. So did they talk to Joe Rogan about Russia? And knowing that he has 11 million listeners, it's the number one podcast, 11 million listeners per episode, if not 10, is he potentially hearing from those who are clearly in the Putin orbit and trying to manufacture consent through his listening audience by slowly easing into this stuff? It's just a question I have. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying, knowing what it says with the company that you keep and who celebrates you, it's just a question that I have upon many. And in closing, put Vladimir Klitschko on. I really want to see this conversation. Will he do it? I really don't think so.